Hello and welcome to Leaders of Tomorrow, India's only daily television platform for small businesses. We bring you the right information to empower you, the SME entrepreneur. Tonight on the show, an influencer conversation with Rentsher. We're also speaking to a game changer tonight, and that's Mpower Minds. The upcoming elections is having an impact on most industry segments here in the country. And one industry that you wouldn't have expected perhaps will have such an impact is that of the rental economy. I spoke with Bengaluru-based startup Rentsher, which is a rental platform for lifestyle products, particularly geared towards events, to understand the impact that the upcoming elections are having, to also understand what some of the innovation is in their economy, and also to understand what 2019 is looking like for them. Take a listen. Harsh, thanks very much for being here on the show.
My pleasure.
Talking about Rentsher, and the online rental economy is definitely growing, and every day we're talking to a company that's doing something completely different in terms of the model it's following in the rental economy, and you're one such company. So maybe let's start by talking about Rentsher, share where the idea for that came about and what really your innovation is.
No, definitely. So this is in 2015. I was exploring a couple of startups in education space or healthcare space. When I stumbled on this book, it's called What's Mine is Yours. It's a book by Rachel Botsman from Oxford, which talks about the collaborative economy and how it's rising across the globe. What struck me most was not the growth of that, but the fact that in India, we have actually been doing a lot of sharing and renting from decades. And it's not a new concept as such. What I also realized that there's a huge offline fragmented market for the event rental industry, which was till that time, even till 2018, it is not really captured as such. So we set out sort of building a platform which enables anybody and everybody to upload their products and enable a seamless renting.
Sure.
So we come from the obviously e-commerce platform where, led by Flipkarts and all. So we know that how easy it has become to order a product and get it to your home. But this is true only for the e-commerce, and we wanted to bring the same experience to e-commerce industry as such, especially around events in your life, which is the sort of genesis of Rentsher as such.
Sure. Okay, so you started as a P2P platform, but then realized quickly that there was a particular niche that you needed to look at, which was broad-basing the platform, one, and also looking at shorter events and not longer, sort of time frames.
Absolutely.
What helped you come, arrive at that decision? How long did it take for you to realize that this is a business strategy change you need to make and be able to then make those changes?
What prompted us to broad-base it as a platform, as a marketplace, was when we got this extremely large order. So the BJP city head of Bangalore calls me and says, look, I need 70 projectors across 70 constituencies. And there is no offline vendor who is able to do that. Can you do that? So I took on the challenge on to Rentsher as such, the platform. We aggregated the supply in audiovisual, and we were able to execute that order. So that was kind of the stepping stone. And that set the ball rolling. More and more vendors sort of affiliated with us, across audiovisuals, across laptops, electronics. And again, as I said earlier, so this was like a latent need that I realized that all these vendors, because of several reasons, were operating offline, reasons which I'll talk about. Sure. But they needed one platform where the products could be actually rented out online through customers. So that was, I would say, a pivot. At this point, we still support peer-to-peer, although it's around 10 to 20% of our revenue. And B2C, the way we look at it, has grown tremendously for us.
Okay, so you're going to be then particularly busy with the upcoming elections?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So we are gearing up for it. I would say a happy situation, like every time I think our team underestimates, the demand that is there. Even for Karnataka elections, we had orders for projectors, wheelchairs across different constituencies, LED vans, LED TVs for campaigning, etc.
Sure.
So those are all the things. Now imagine election or a campaign or a conference. These are all one-time events. you don't necessarily have to buy all these equipment just because you have this event once in 3 months, 6 months, or 1 year. So that's where actually Rentsher comes into picture, aggregates the supply for you as a customer or as an individual or as a corporate or as a campaigning party, and we supply these things to you.
As you were looking at this market, what were some of the challenges that you came across, and how have you been able to use technology to ensure that you are bringing a solution to those problems?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think our journey has shown us that building a platform today for e-commerce is relatively straightforward.
Okay.
But re-commerce as a segment has certain nuances, which thankfully we have a very good tech team now in place.
Sure.
So what they're dealing with. So what are the nuances? So for example, you have to book a particular asset from a period of time, like from date and till a particular time.
Sure.
The asset has to go out, it has to come back in a genuinely good condition, right? So things like, customer KYC, things like deposit, things like, the rental price being dependent on the supply. So all these things have to be coded into the platform itself.
Sure.
Beyond this, even the operational part. So it is actually a delivery as well as a pickup, what we schedule into our system. And that is something which technology only helps us to scale up. Today we are present in 8 cities in India. We have rapidly launched, UAE. We just are launching Saudi.
Okay.
And all that is basically possible because we have built a platform for any vendor to upload their products, get onto our platform. They are registered with us. And any order which comes in is actually broadcasted to these vendors who accept the order and then they execute it.
Sure.
So it's something like the Ola rental. Ola is basically a rental of cars in live, sort of real time. The same experience we are providing across these 3 segments, which is events, electronics, and equipment.
Okay, can you break down your revenue model and also can you help us understand, are you perhaps looking at, servicing some of the equipment that you're renting out on your platform? Does that get built into your cost as well? How does it work?
Yeah, definitely. So as I said, as a marketplace, right? So a typical marketplace model has a simple revenue share. Typically it's in the range of around 80-20 or 75-25 depending on the services.
Sure.
So Rentsher provides a platform for easy bookability, discovery, transparency, as well as the payment collection.
Sure.
Beyond this, we have vendors. We have close to 700 vendors who provide this equipment, and they are actually experts in handling the service, the maintenance, etc. So we don't want to, for example, take away their bread and butter. In fact, just to give an example, our first app is not for the customers. Our first app is for the vendors that are actually providing these products to our customers.
You're saying Saudi Arabia, that's fairly interesting that you're looking at India and Saudi Arabia. Why Saudi Arabia? The markets may be similar in some sense.
So I would say the stepping stone for that was the success we got in the UAE market.
Okay.
UAE market has proven, especially, sort of the market of Dubai and the neighboring provinces. We have now become a household name for the whole event industry there. So Rentsher is recognized as one of the top 10 startups in the region. Again, because there was no actual aggregator for all the events.
What perhaps are some of the future plans that you can share with us? You're talking about expansion to other cities. Any other vertical segments that you're maybe looking at adding?
At least for the 2019 sort of 2019-20 timeframe, I would say there is enough and more to be done in the verticals that we are in. So just to give an example, now with the elections coming, there's enough of sort of audiovisual electronic rentals that will keep us busy.
Okay.
We are also targeting the World Expo 2020. We just signed up a large MOU with the government of Sharjah to be their complete event rental provider for the next 2 years. Okay. And that will obviously keep us busy.
Congratulations, yeah.
Thank you. So these kind of events, so there's another sort of very large cruise company. They come and park their ship in the Middle East. And for the entire winter region, every weekend they do events. So they have chosen Rentsher as their trusted partner.
Sure.
So similarly, we are working with companies like Adobe, Mercedes, Zomato. We are doing large events for them. So that's how it works.
Okay. Is there a seasonality then to your business because you're seeing events? And if yes, how are you then de-risking it?
Yeah, definitely. So 2 things here. One is that in India, if you look at it, every month is a season, right? We have festivals all the way from Makar Sankranti. And cities like Mumbai and Bangalore, they have become so cosmopolitan. I believe we celebrate everything from Ganesh Chaturthi to Halloween to Christmas and all the festivals. So that's one. The second is that the B2B conferences and events, so again they happen throughout the year. The last thing is that Rentsher is also now very well known in the electronics space. So we are sort of the chosen provider for IT equipment for over 200 startups, fueling their growth because they don't have to invest in the capital expenditure. We ensure that we provide it from the right place at the right price and whatever suits their requirement.
Okay.
And that's sort of an evergreen growing business, I would say. We have 5,000 startups in Bangalore and close to 2,000 in Mumbai itself.
Okay, my last question then, and I want to talk about funding. What your own fundraising journey has been.
Yeah.
Your industry is definitely evolving.
Yes.
So I would assume that if you were looking for funding or someone in your industry is looking for funding, it wouldn't be too difficult.
Right. So again, for us, funding has been again driven by the requirement that we have so far in the past. One of the challenges we faced early on was sort of to differentiate ourselves from the Rentomojos and the Furlenkos, because that's a very lifestyle-driven renting, whereas we focused on a need-based segment, which is an event in your life is what we focus on.
Sure.
But today, as we speak, a lot of people are recognizing that things like, event furniture, event electronics is needed. And there are a couple of companies, very large ones like Coat in US, which is around $500 million revenue, which is doing pretty much similar equipment, but for the US market. Mm-hmm. And in India, we're trying to sort of aggregate the supply and become the Coat of, let's say, India and Middle East, and hopefully other countries very soon.
So what's the size of the market then that you're looking at?
I think events alone, we are looking at around 10,000 crores is the B2B events that are there. And if you look at the 5 crore upper middle class households, each spending around 5,000 rupees at least every year on things like birthday parties and weddings. Weddings can go multi-crores, right? From the Deepika wedding to so on. So we are looking at roughly around 20,000 crore market in India alone. Add on a similar market in the Middle East.
Okay, so Harsh, wish you all the best then for that.
Thank you so much.
Let's take a break. On the other side, Mpower is in focus. Do stay tuned. Welcome back. You're with us here on Leaders of Tomorrow, and our second The Influencer conversation tonight is with Mpower. Our game changer tonight is with Neerja Birla, who has started Mpower to try and normalize conversations around mental health. Mental health and the understanding of that in India may be very low when compared to most of our global peers, but at least things have started changing on the ground. Do listen in to this very special conversation with her.
5, 4, on your marks, get set, go!
Neerja, thank you so much for taking the time to join us here in our studios.
Thank you so much, Ananda. Pleasure to be here.
Mental health is something that's so crucial, particularly in a country like India, but unfortunately there isn't enough information and not enough people seem to be talking about it. But you are attempting to do something to change that situation. So let's talk about Mpower. It is an advocacy platform for mental health where you're talking and disseminating information about mental health, but you're also providing solutions. So just talk to us about where that idea came about.
Mpower is an idea that was born about 3 years ago. And January is celebrated as we're celebrating our 3rd anniversary actually now. So the idea came about because, I myself went through postpartum depression. And at that point in time, the awareness was minimal. I myself didn't know what had happened. And I just believe that had I been better prepared, had I known what's it about, if people around me knew more about it, I think we collectively would have been able to handle the situation better. I would have been able to handle the situation better. So I really do think that there is so much, there's such a lack of information and lack of awareness about mental health that and there's a lot of stigma around it. Yeah. So if one is able to dispel the myths around it, one is able to alleviate the stigma around it, one is able to create more awareness about it, I think we all will just be able to lead much better, productive and fulfilled lives. And that's really the mission and that is the vision of Mpower. I believe that everybody has a right to lead a fulfilled life And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to create the awareness, and we're also providing solutions, psychiatric as well as psychological solutions, so that people are able to seek help and lead much better lives.
Okay. You were talking about stigma, and a few of the things that you're doing to ensure that, you know, it's coming out more in the public space is having initiatives like, I understand, Mpower Fest, as well as Ride to Empower. How do initiatives like this, how are they really helping to normalize conversations around mental health?
So, well, like, take the example of the Mpower Fest. It's a music fest, and through that platform, of course, the medium is music, but through that, we are talking a lot about mental health. So, during the concert, there's a lot of conversation around it. On stage, we're discussing it. The artists themselves are talking about it. Lead up to the program, lead up to the Mpower Fest, also there's a lot of conversation about it. So in that sense, I believe that when one talks about it, it automatically normalizes it. Similarly, Ride to Empower is a cycle ride. This is going to be the 4th edition.
Okay.
We had 2,000 participants last year. Again, a very similar sort of process, similar pattern, where the lead up to it, as well as the event itself, people talk about mental health. And that's the only way that you can really normalize it. I mean, by just creating awareness and talking about it in everyday conversation.
Okay. We talk very often about the divide between India and Bharat, and, you know, how stark it is for many industries. And I would presume that when we're talking about mental health, the information or the lack of it really outside of the metros is very stark. How are platforms like yours perhaps addressing that base as well?
So, you know, honestly, I think the information and the lack of awareness is so high, even in urban India. I don't know how much the difference is really going to be, because I don't know how much worse it can be. Having said that, I think it's a similar thing, because even in rural India, the idea is, again, just to create awareness, to talk about it, disseminate information on it. And it's a similar thing that we have to just do. I think in something like mental health, I think it'll be a similar sort of process that we'll have to just follow in rural India as well.
Okay, but are the challenges higher, because there are several more barriers, I would presume, you may have to overcome?
In terms of understanding, yes, maybe. And one will only know when one really tests the waters.
Sure.
We really still have to make our foray into rural India. When we started out in urban, I knew it's going to be tough, because what we're really trying to do is create a Copernican shift in the mindsets of people, and attitudinal shifts, as we all know, always take a lot of time. But once we really started it, it was the difficulties, challenges, roadblocks were far more than what I had even imagined them to be. So similarly in rural India, it's only when we get out there and test the waters will I really know how tough it's going to be.
Okay.
But we're ready for it.
Okay, so that is there in the pipeline, you're saying, at some point.
Very much.
I want to talk about the role of the government. How does the government in a country like India, what should be the role of the government when it comes to talking about and ensuring mental wellness and health of its citizens?
So, you know, the first thing is the Mental Health Care Act that they have just passed, which I think is a great way forward. So I think when the government does and puts forward solutions like that, I think it helps not only normalize it, but also helps helps the common person to take advantage of the incentives that are available.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So, for example, decriminalizing suicide is a very big step towards it. Of course, I mean, if even insurance comes under the umbrella, there'll be nothing like it, because mental health is any case considered a luxury, and then when it added to the expense added to it just makes it even more difficult. But I think the government in its own way is trying to bring about initiatives. For example, I know that they're trying to work with the prisoners. Okay. Because one is realizing that mental health is really important even for them. So incentives and initiatives like this, I think, will help us in the way forward.
Okay. On one hand, of course, you have the government, which has a very crucial role to play. But on the other, and since we are a show that talks to small businesses and talks to businesses and talks to corporate India, what's the role then of companies, no matter what the size is, when it comes to ensuring mental health of its employees?
Companies in corporate India can really do a lot. And that's another thing that we're trying to do. We're trying to promote EAPs and trying to promote workshops for the corporates as well. Mm-hmm. Again, to create awareness and to bring about a general understanding of what really it means to have depression or have anxiety or have panic. And I think these are things that normally one really goes through all the time. It's just that a lot of the times it just either goes unnoticed, or particularly with high achievers, one doesn't want to accept that one has it. Yeah. So we're trying to promote workshops talking about the same. And I think if corporate India, if corporates are able to kind of have these kind of workshops with their employees, I think it'll go a great way. It'll really go a long way.
Long way.
I think having workshops is one thing. Also, understanding that one can have a bad day, one can not be feeling up to it.
Sure.
Or if somebody really has depression, to understand that and to give them time off.
Sure.
You know, it's like having fever sometimes. When you have fever, you really need the time off. So if you are depressed, and if you're having a bad day, or if you're having a bad episode, I think it's really okay to give them time off.
Sure. Speaking of which, in fact, a few European countries do give you time off as mental, health days. Do you think India perhaps can reach that at some point?
Well, if we can, and I hope we do, it will be really great, because that will mean that, we've really kind of understood the problem and really accepting it in the right manner.
Sure. For those entrepreneurs who are watching this interview, to say that this perhaps is something that they would be interested in doing as well, but at the end of the day, business is for profit, and they want to know, is it possible to have, a business in this space? Is it possible to make money? Is it possible to raise funds? Have you perhaps had any experience in that space?
So honestly, we're still very early on in our journey. And so I think it's only fair for me to say that it's very difficult to really break even or even make profit. We're not here for profit, we're a social enterprise. Sure. So the question of profit, in any case, doesn't arise. Having said that, it is really still very difficult. I mean, there's no way that, at least at this point in time, it's going to be really difficult to even break even.
Let's close this interview then by talking to you about what perhaps is on the radar in terms of the next few years for you at Mpower, and your USP, really, how you're differentiating yourselves from others who are working in this space.
So I'm looking at really opening out more centers of Mpower. We're opening Bangalore very soon. So I'm really looking forward to that. And I am looking at growing Mpower pan-India, of course.
Okay.
I think what differentiates us is the holistic intervention that we offer at all our centers and our foundations. And the other thing is, of course, creating more awareness about mental health and alleviating the stigma and dispelling the myths around it.
Okay, and wish you all the very best. And thank you for the work that you're doing.
Thanks you so much,
down.
Thanks.
That's our show tonight. If you have any feedback for us, do get in touch. leadersoftomorrow@timesgroup.com is our email ID. On social media, tweet at me at Sunanda_J or LOT_ET now. Reach us also on our Facebook page, Leaders of Tomorrow on ET Now. Thanks for watching. Have a good night. As per the new Tri-Tariff Order, you now have the power to choose and pay only for the channels you love. To keep watching Leaders of Tomorrow on ET Now, call your cable or DTH operator and get the Times movies and news pack now.
Complete your TV viewing experience with the best of Hollywood entertainment and news. Get the Times movies and news pack at just 13 rupees. Ask your cable or DTH provider now.